My sister humiliated me because she rented a luxury apartment while I lived in a small house, but she didn't know I was the owner of her apartment. I grew up watching my parents choose my older sister over me in every single decision that mattered. It wasn't subtle. It was blatant, systematic favoritism that shaped my entire childhood. Birthday parties where hers had ponies and bounce houses while mine had grocery store cake. Christmas mornings where her pile of presents dwarfed mine 3-to-1. School supplies where she got premium everything and I got whatever was on sale. But the real defining moment, the one that crystallized everything, came when I turned 18. My sister had gotten a brand new car 2 years earlier for her own 18th birthday, back when I was only 16 and still taking the bus everywhere. Not just any car, but a brand new sedan with leather seats, a premium sound system, and every upgrade package available. My parents threw her a party to reveal it, complete with that giant red bow on top like in commercials. Everyone took photos. My mother cried happy tears. My father gave a speech about how proud he was of the young woman she was becoming. When my 18th birthday arrived, I tried not to have expectations. Tried to tell myself that maybe they'd do something different for me. Something that showed they valued me equally. I didn't need a new car, I told myself. Just something that showed they cared the same amount. They gave me a card with $200 cash inside and told me happy birthday. That was it. No party. No car, no speech. Just a card and an amount of money that wouldn't even cover a month of car insurance. I was working part-time at a coffee shop just to afford bus fare and gas for the beat-up sedan I'd bought with my own savings months earlier. I'd been setting aside money since I was 15, every dollar from babysitting and later from that coffee shop job, just to have basic transportation. The car cost me $2,000 and had 180,000 miles on it. The air conditioning didn't work. The radio was broken, but it was mine. Purchased with money I'd earned myself, and that had to be enough. College was the same story. My sister wanted an expensive private university, $45,000 a year tuition, $60,000 total with room and board. My parents didn't even blink. Of course, sweetheart. We'll handle everything. Meanwhile, I'd been accepted to 3 universities but would need loans for all of them. When I sat down with my parents to discuss it, my father sighed like I was being unreasonable. Chloe, you're smart. You'll figure it out. Look at all these scholarships. You don't need our help. Your sister needs more support to succeed. I wanted to scream. Her grades were mediocre. She'd never worked a day in her life. What qualified her for unlimited support while I got nothing? I didn't scream. I figured it out. State school with scholarships, student loans, night shifts at a diner while my sister posted photos from tropical spring breaks. My mother's explanation never changed through any of this. She'd look at me with that tired expression, like I was somehow exhausting her by wanting equal treatment, and say the same thing every time I questioned it. Your sister needs more support, Chloe. You've always been so independent. You've always been capable of handling things on your own. You'll be fine. And honestly, wasn't it better this way? Didn't I feel proud of my independence? The implication was always clear. My competence was actually a disadvantage. My ability to survive without help meant I didn't deserve help. I was being punished for being capable, while my sister was rewarded for being helpless. And I was fine. That's the thing that haunted me for years. I actually was fine, which somehow made it worse. I graduated with honors in business administration, top 5% of my class, with 3 legitimate job offers waiting before I even walked across that stage. I'd networked aggressively, maintained a perfect attendance record in my classes despite the brutal schedule, and impressed every professor who'd worked with me. My thesis on supply chain optimization had been selected for presentation at a regional business conference. I had references from employers and academics who used words like exceptional and dedicated and natural leader. My father's offer wasn't one of them initially. He didn't even attend my graduation, said the business had an important shipment coming in that day and he needed to be there to oversee it. My mother came, sat in the audience, took a few photos, then left immediately after the ceremony because she needed to get back to help my father with something. Meanwhile, when my sister had graduated 2 years earlier, they'd both attended, brought flowers, taken her to an expensive dinner, and given her a 2-week vacation to Europe as a graduation present. My graduation gift was that same pattern, a card with $500 inside. No dinner, no trip, just cash and a quick congratulations before my mother rushed off. My father called me 2 days later. For a moment, I hoped he wanted to make up for missing my graduation. Instead, he offered me a job. Come work for the family business, Chloe. Administrative department. Entry level. The salary? $28,000 a year. Meanwhile, my sister had walked straight into management at $65,000 despite her mediocre grades and zero work experience. When I asked my father about the discrepancy, he looked genuinely confused. I called him that evening, my hands shaking with anger I was trying to control. Dad, I need to understand something. You're offering me $28,000 for an administrative position, but my sister started at $65,000 in management. We both have business degrees. I graduated with honors. She barely passed. Can you explain the logic here? There was a long pause on the other end. When he spoke, his voice had that edge of irritation he got whenever anyone questioned his decisions. Chloe, you're comparing apples and oranges. Your sister has a different role, different responsibilities. She's family, so she's in a management track position. You'd be starting in an administrative capacity, which is appropriate for entry level. She's family? The words came out sharper than I intended. She's family, so she gets management. What am I? Another pause, longer this time. I could hear him shifting in his chair, that leather creaking sound I'd grown up hearing. You know what I mean, he said finally, defensive now. She's been groomed for this role. She understands the business because she's grown up around it. You've been focused on your own path, your consulting interests, all that academic stuff. This is just an opportunity if you want it. No pressure. I closed my eyes, felt tears of frustration threatening to spill over. I'd worked twice as hard as her my entire life, gotten better grades, actually learned the material. And here was my own father telling me I was worth less than half her starting salary. I graduated top of my class, I said quietly. I have 3 other offers. All of them pay more than what you're offering. Significantly more. Well then, he said, and I could hear the dismissal in his voice. Sounds like you don't need me to solve your problems. Take one of those other offers. Like I said, no pressure. He hung up before I could respond. Your sister has a different role. Chloe. Different responsibilities. She's family, so she's in a management track position. You'd be starting in an administrative capacity, which is appropriate for entry level. She's family? I remember repeating those words back to him, my voice flat with shock. She's family, so she gets management. What am I? He frowned, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. You know what I mean. She's been groomed for this role. She understands the business because she's grown up around it. You've been focused on your own path, your consulting interests, all that academic stuff. This is just an opportunity if you want it. No pressure, no pressure. Right. Just the pressure of watching my younger sister, who'd contributed nothing and earned nothing, get handed a career on a silver platter while I was offered scraps. Just the pressure of realizing that my own father valued me so little that he thought $28,000 a year was an appropriate offer for someone who just graduated top of her class. I turned him down flat, didn't even pretend to consider it or ask for time to think about it. Just told him no thank you. I've accepted a position elsewhere. The look on his face was almost worth the years of mistreatment. Almost. He seemed genuinely surprised that I would refuse what he clearly viewed as a generous offer. I took a job with a business consulting firm instead, starting at $38,000, which felt like a fortune because I'd earned it myself. Nobody handed it to me because of my last name. Nobody gave it to me because they felt obligated by family ties. I got the offer because I'd impressed them in 3 rounds of interviews, because my resume demonstrated actual competence, because they believed I could deliver value to their clients. The validation of being chosen on merit, rather than given something out of pity or obligation, meant everything to me. For the next decade, I lived modestly, aggressively, almost spitefully modestly. A small 1-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy. 750 square feet with dated appliances and carpet that had seen better days. But it was in a safe area with parking, and the rent was affordable enough that I could save half my paycheck every month. A used economy car that got me where I needed to go. I bought it for $6,000 with 80,000 miles on it, and I drove that same car for 8 years, maintaining it religiously, refusing to upgrade even when I could afford it. I didn't buy designer clothes, shopped at discount stores and outlet malls, looking for quality pieces that would last rather than trendy items that would go out of style in a season. I didn't eat at expensive restaurants unless a client meeting required it, and even then I ordered conservatively. I packed lunches for work, made coffee at home instead of stopping at cafes, canceled subscriptions I didn't absolutely need. Every extra dollar went into savings and investments because I understood something my sister never learned, something my parents had failed to teach her. Money you earn means something. Money you're given disappears like water through your fingers, and you never develop the skills to generate more. I invested in index funds and bond funds, maxed out my retirement accounts, built an emergency fund that could cover a year of expenses, read books on personal finance and real estate investment, attended free seminars on wealth building. I treated my financial education like a second job because I knew that nobody was going to rescue me if things went wrong. There was no family safety net. No parents I could call if I lost my job or got sick or made a bad decision. I was entirely on my own, and that meant I needed to be smarter and more prepared than everyone else. My sister, on the other hand, lived like she'd personally built the family business from the ground up. Like every dollar in the company bank account was there because of her brilliance and hard work. Designer handbags that cost $3,000 each. She had 6 of them by the time she was 25, displayed on a special shelf in her apartment like trophies. A luxury car that she totaled twice, both times while texting and driving, and had replaced both times by our parents with newer models. The insurance premiums alone must have been astronomical, but our father just paid them without complaint. Dinners at steakhouses where she'd post photos of $100 bottles of wine and appetizers that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Spa days and salon visits that ran into the hundreds of dollars every single month. Vacation trips to resorts where a single night cost more than my monthly rent. And all of it, every single expensive indulgence, was funded either directly by my parents or by the inflated salary she received from a job she was barely qualified to do. And at every single family gathering, without fail, she found ways to mock my modest lifestyle. The comments started subtle, observations about my clothes being outdated or my car being old. Then they got more pointed, more deliberately cruel. Still renting, Chloe? When are you going to buy a real place? I mean, don't you want to build equity? Don't you want to feel like a real adult with property you own? That little car of yours still running? Wow, you've had that thing forever. Must be tough living paycheck to paycheck and not being able to afford an upgrade. She'd say these things with this sympathetic smile plastered on her face, her voice dripping with fake concern, making it sound like she was worried about me rather than deliberately rubbing my face in our financial differences. And my parents would just laugh it off as sisterly teasing. Oh, you two, stop bickering. Chloe knows you're just joking around. Except she wasn't joking. Every comment was calculated to make me feel less than. To remind me that by her standards, by our parents' standards, I was failing at life. Never mind that her entire lifestyle was built on other people's money. Never mind that she'd never earned a single dollar through her own competence. The appearance of success was all that mattered, and she had the designer bags and luxury car to prove it while I had my used sedan and modest apartment. But I kept working, kept pushing, kept proving myself in ways she never had to and never would have to. I moved up through the consulting firm methodically, strategically. Started as a junior analyst, then senior analyst. Each promotion came with more responsibility, longer hours, and thankfully, more money. I worked on projects for major corporations, helping them optimize their supply chains, reduce costs, improve efficiency. I traveled for work, sometimes 50% of the month, living out of hotels and working from client sites. There was one moment, just one, where I thought maybe my mother understood. I was 24, just promoted to senior analyst. It was my first real promotion with a title change, not just a raise. I was proud, genuinely, deeply proud of myself. And for some stupid reason, I wanted to share that with her. I called on a Tuesday evening. Mom, I got promoted today. Senior analyst. Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Mom, I'm here, she said, and her voice sounded strange, strained. Chloe, you'd be surprised if I said I always knew you'd be successful. Wouldn't you? My heart jumped. Was this it? Finally? Some acknowledgement of what she'd put me through? Your sisters always needed more help, more structure, more guidance. You were always so strong, so capable. You never needed me the way she needed me. I watched you figure everything out on your own, and I thought it was better that way, that you were better off developing that independence. But I needed you to, Mom. I just hid it better. Another long silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end. I know, she whispered. Those 2 words hit me like a truck. She knew. She'd always known. This wasn't ignorance or obliviousness or being too overwhelmed to notice. This was a choice. A conscious, deliberate choice to prioritize one daughter over the other. Then why? I asked, my voice breaking despite my best efforts. Why did you keep doing it? Her voice changed, hardened, went back to that familiar defensive tone. Because look at you now, Chloe. Look at how successful you are, how independent, how strong. You didn't need our help and you still succeeded. That proves I was right, doesn't it? You were always going to be fine. I was quiet, understanding washing over me cold and final. She knew what she'd done. She'd known the whole time. and she'd convinced herself it was justified because I'd survived it. My success wasn't despite her neglect. In her mind, it was proof that her neglect was acceptable. "I have to go," I said. "Congratulations on the promotion, sweetheart," she said, like we just had a normal conversation. "Your father and I are very proud." I hung up without responding. I didn't call her to share good news again for 5 years. Around this time, I started seeing a therapist. Not because I thought there was anything wrong with me, but because a colleague mentioned it casually over lunch and something about it stuck. I was 27, working 60-hour weeks, sleeping poorly, and carrying around a knot of anger in my chest that never quite loosened. And now I knew why. My mother had confirmed what I'd always suspected. I wasn't unloved because I was unlovable. I was unloved because being capable made me convenient to ignore. The therapist's office was small and calm. Her name was Dr. Patterson, and she had this way of listening that made you feel actually heard. After 3 sessions about work stress, she finally asked the real question. "Tell me about your family, Chloe." I spent 45 minutes telling her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "It sounds like you've spent your entire life trying to prove you're worthy of love you should have received unconditionally, and no amount of success is going to fill that hole until you accept that the problem was never you. It was them." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. "Do you think they'll ever acknowledge it?" I asked. The favoritism. Dr. Patterson leaned back. "I think you need to ask yourself why you're still waiting for that acknowledgement, and what you're going to do when you accept that it might never come." I kept seeing her for 2 years. She helped me sleep better, manage stress, set boundaries, but that question stayed with me. The consulting firm gave me something my family never had: a meritocracy. Your performance mattered. Your results mattered. It didn't matter if your parents knew the partners or if you had the right connections. If you delivered value to clients, if you brought in new business, if you solved problems that others couldn't solve, you got promoted. Simple as that. 3 years into consulting, I got recruited by a tech company. The salary was $65,000, a big jump. I took it. Within 5 years, I'd been promoted 4 times through delivering consistent results. I implemented systems that cut delivery times by 20%, renegotiated contracts saving millions annually, built high-performing teams. The work was brutal sometimes. There were weeks where I slept 4 hours a night and lived on coffee and takeout. There were projects that consumed entire months of my life. There were moments when I questioned whether it was worth it, whether climbing the corporate ladder at this pace was sustainable or healthy. Not everything went smoothly. When I was 29, I led a major automation project that was supposed to revolutionize our inventory management system. I'd pitched it to the executive team, gotten buy-in, assembled a cross-functional team. 6 months and $2 million into development. The system crashed during beta testing and corrupted 3 weeks of live data. The company had to roll back to manual processes while we fixed it. My manager called me into his office and I genuinely thought I was getting fired. "This is a serious failure, Chloe. The kind that ends careers." I sat there, exhausted, terrified, trying to figure out what I'd say to potential employers when they asked why I'd been let go from a company where I'd been promoted 3 times. But then he leaned back in his chair and asked me a question I wasn't expecting. "What did you learn?" I spent the next 20 minutes walking him through every mistake we'd made, the assumptions we shouldn't have made, the testing protocols we should have implemented, the backup systems we should have built. He listened without interrupting. "Fix it," he said finally. "You've got 4 weeks to get the system stable and another 2 months to prove it works better than what we had before. Don't make me regret giving you this chance." I worked 90-hour weeks for the next month, barely slept, lived at the office, but I fixed it. The system not only worked, it exceeded the original projections by 30%. That failure taught me more about leadership and resilience than any of my successes ever had. Still, there were moments when I questioned whether it was all worth it. A year after the automation disaster, I led another major initiative consolidating 3 regional distribution centers into one massive facility. This time, I was more careful, more thorough. Spent 6 months on planning. The executive team wanted speed, but I held firm. We do this right or we don't do it at all. The consolidation went smoother than expected. 98% of employees successfully relocated. The new facility was operational within budget and ahead of schedule. Savings exceeded projections by 40%. That's when I realized the failure had made me better. More strategic, less concerned with impressing people, more focused on delivering results. But every time I doubted, I'd remember being 18 years old watching my sister get that car with the bow on top. I'd remember my father offering me that insulting job. I'd remember my mother telling me I'd be fine, like being capable meant I didn't deserve support, and I'd push harder. By the time I turned 32, I was a regional director making $140,000 a year. Not billionaire money, not even close. Not the kind of money that makes headlines or turns heads in Silicon Valley. But it was real money that I'd earned through actual competence, through years of delivering value, through proving myself over and over again in ways my sister had never been required to do. And that's when I decided it was time to invest in property. I'd been researching real estate markets for 2 years by that point, reading books, following market trends, analyzing neighborhoods and property values. I'd saved diligently, living well below my means even as my salary increased. While my peers were upgrading their lifestyles with every promotion, buying new cars and designer clothes and eating out constantly, I was still driving that same used economy car and living in that same modest one-bedroom apartment. People thought I was cheap or weird. I didn't care. I had goals. I bought my first property when I had $75,000 saved. A 2-bedroom apartment in a gentrifying neighborhood for $480,000. The mortgage would be $2,800 a month. It had covered parking, a gym, a decent kitchen, and a view of the city skyline. I lived there for 3 years, furnished it carefully, learned to cook, hosted small dinner parties, finally felt like I was building a life that was mine. When I turned 35, I got another promotion. Senior Regional Director at $165,000. I bought a house in a suburban neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, small yard, 2-car garage. $650,000. I kept the apartment as a rental property instead of selling it. Hired a property management company to handle everything. The first tenant was a retired teacher who'd just moved to the city to be closer to her daughter. Mrs. Chen, 72 years old with bright eyes and the kind of warmth I'd always wished for. She'd taught high school English for 40 years. Her husband had passed 2 years earlier. Mrs. Chen was the ideal tenant. Paid $1,700 a month on time every single month. Kept the place immaculate. Occasionally left small gifts outside my door when I lived nearby. Homemade cookies. A plant she thought would brighten my office. Small kindnesses I wasn't used to from anyone. She stayed for 4 years total before she decided to move in with her daughter's family. When she gave notice, I had to decide what to do with the property. The market had changed significantly in those 4 years. Similar apartments in the building were now renting for $2,800 to $3,000 a month. Property values had jumped 30%. I listed the apartment for $3,000 a month. It was a big jump from what the teacher had been paying, but it was market rate for the area and the building amenities. I worked with the same property management company to handle everything. They took quality photos, wrote a professional listing, and handled all the inquiries and showings. I remained anonymous as the owner, preferring to let them handle all the details. It was just easier that way. Less personal drama if something went wrong with a tenant. More professional. That's when fate handed me the most perfect opportunity I could have ever imagined. An opportunity so perfectly aligned with years of resentment and humiliation that it almost felt like the universe was apologizing for decades of unfairness. I was at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, something I still forced myself to attend every few weeks despite dreading it every single time. These dinners were exhausting performances where I had to pretend everything was fine, pretend I didn't notice the continued favoritism, pretend my sister's constant barbs didn't bother me. My therapist had asked me multiple times why I kept going if they made me so miserable. I didn't have a good answer. Obligation, maybe. Or some pathetic hope that maybe, eventually, my parents would notice they'd been treating me unfairly and try to make amends. That particular Sunday, I'd arrived early because my mother had guilted me into helping with the cooking. My sister, of course, had texted that she was running late, which was her standard excuse to avoid any kind of labor or responsibility. So there I was, chopping vegetables in my parents' kitchen while my mother told me for the 100th time that I should really think about settling down and finding a nice man to start a family with. As if the problem was that I hadn't prioritized the right things, rather than that I'd been too busy building a career to rely on myself since no one else would. My sister arrived an hour late with elaborate apologies that everyone accepted immediately. She looked stressed, which was unusual for her. There were dark circles under her eyes that her makeup didn't quite hide. Her smile seemed forced, but she launched into her usual performance anyway, complaining loudly about work stress and difficult projects, though she never provided specifics about what exactly she did all day. Dinner itself was awkward. My sister was quieter than usual, picking at her food, checking her phone constantly. My father looked tired, older somehow. My mother kept trying to fill the silences with cheerful questions that no one really wanted to answer. The energy was off, and I remember thinking that maybe the family business was having problems. There had been news about new trade regulations affecting imports, and I'd wondered if my father's company was feeling the pressure. After dinner, I went to the hallway to grab my jacket. I was planning to make my excuses and leave early, escape back to my own space where I didn't have to perform this exhausting charade of family harmony. That's when I heard my sister talking to my mother in the kitchen. Their voices carried down the hallway. Not quite arguing, but definitely tense. "Mom, I need to find a new place. My lease is up in 2 months and the landlord's raising my rent." "Well, what are you looking for, sweetheart?" "Something with 2 bedrooms. Decent area. I can't afford anything crazy, but I need something nice enough for my image. You know?" I froze in the hallway, my jacket half on. My sister needed an apartment. I had an apartment. An apartment she'd never connect to me because it was owned through an LLC for liability reasons. The idea hit me all at once. So perfect, it almost made me laugh out loud. I didn't say anything that night. Finished putting on my jacket, said polite goodbyes, drove home. But my mind was already working. The next week, I created a fake social media profile. Generic name, stock photos, made it look like someone in my sister's social circle. Someone she'd gone to college with but wasn't super close to. I spent 2 days building out the profile, adding mutual friends carefully, making it look authentic. Then I started posting pictures of my apartment from angles that showcased the best features. The view, the modern kitchen, the building amenities. I geotagged the location, mentioned in captions how much I loved my new place, how lucky I was to find something so perfect. 2 bedrooms, covered parking, gym in the building, amazing location. And then the critical post. Ugh, I have to move for work. If anyone's looking for a place, there's another unit in my building coming available. 2 bed, 1 bath, parking, gym, the works. Market rate is like $3,200, but I heard they might do $2,800 for a quick lease. DM me if interested. I tagged the location, made it public, waited. It took less than 24 hours. My sister commented, "OMG, this looks amazing. Can you send me details?" I responded with a link to the property management company's listing. Professional, helpful, just a college acquaintance doing a favor. 2 days later, she contacted the property management company directly. I'd already called them with specific instructions. If someone named sister's name calls about the 2-bedroom unit, treat her like a priority client. Make her feel special. Offer her the promotional rate. They called me when she scheduled a viewing. "Your priority client is coming in tomorrow." "Perfect," I said. "Give her the full treatment." She signed the lease 3 days after the viewing. The property manager called me, almost laughing. She was so excited, kept saying how lucky she was to find something this perfect in her budget, signed without even trying to negotiate. The background check showed she was making $95,000 a year at our father's company. $3,000 a month was tight for her but manageable if she wanted to maintain a certain image, which of course she did. She never asked who owned the building, never thought to check beyond the LLC name on the paperwork, just signed her name on that contract and handed over first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit. "I own you now," I thought, staring at the signed lease. You just don't know it yet. The next family dinner was entertaining in ways nobody else at the table could understand. My sister announced her move with the kind of fanfare usually reserved for major life achievements. "I found the most amazing apartment," she gushed, showing everyone photos on her phone. 2 bedrooms, covered parking, gym, incredible location. It's in this really exclusive building. I had to jump on it before someone else grabbed it. My mother practically glowed with pride. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. See, Chloe? Your sister knows how to invest in herself. Maybe you should think about upgrading from that little rental you're in." I just smiled and sipped my wine, thinking about how every single word of praise they gave her was actually praise for my business decisions, my investment strategy, my property. They were celebrating me without knowing it. 2 weeks later, my sister invited me over for dinner at her new place. I knew exactly what this was. This wasn't about sisterly bonding or making amends for years of cruelty. This was about rubbing my face in her perceived success, about showing me everything she had that I supposedly didn't. I almost declined, but curiosity won. I wanted to see her showing off my own apartment to me, completely oblivious. It was even better than I'd imagined. She gave me the full tour, pointing out features like she'd personally designed them. "Look at this kitchen, Chloe. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. This is what quality looks like. And the view from the balcony? I mean, you probably can't see this kind of view from wherever you're living." She said it with that same sympathetic smile, that condescending tone that implied I was somehow failing at life while she was thriving. I nodded along, making appropriate comments, while internally calculating that she'd just paid me $3,000 for the privilege of insulting me in my own property. Every month, like clockwork, rent money flowed from her account to mine. She thought she was living her best life. I knew I was funding mine with her money while she remained completely ignorant. The social media posts started immediately. Professional photos of the living room with carefully arranged furniture and decorative accents. Sunset shots from the balcony with wine glasses in the foreground. Captions about grateful for this beautiful space and living my best life in the city. Her friends commented with heart emojis and congratulations. My mother shared every single post with pride. I watched it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. She was paying me to provide the backdrop for her performance of success. The irony was delicious. 6 months into her lease, everything changed. The family import business hit serious trouble. New trade regulations made their primary product line nearly impossible to source profitably. Competition from larger companies with better infrastructure squeezed their margins. And years of my father's questionable management decisions finally caught up with him. He'd kept my sister on the payroll despite her contributing essentially nothing of value, and now he couldn't afford that luxury anymore. I heard about it through my mother's worried phone call. "The business is struggling, Chloe. Your father's had to let people go. It's been very stressful." She didn't mention my sister specifically, but I knew. I'd seen the company's public filings. They'd cut 30% of their workforce. There was no way my sister's made-up management position survived those cuts. Sure enough, at the next family dinner, my sister was quieter than usual. No announcements, no bragging. She picked at her food and avoided eye contact. My father looked 10 years older, and my mother kept trying to fill the awkward silence with cheerful questions that nobody wanted to answer. Finally, over dessert, the truth came out. The company had to make difficult decisions, my father said, looking at his plate instead of at my sister. "We had to restructure. Your sister's position was eliminated." My sister's face flushed red, but she tried to maintain composure. "It's fine," she said, voice tight. "I'm already looking at other opportunities. Lots of companies would be lucky to have someone with my experience." Except she didn't have experience. She had a job title our father had invented for her, and 7 years of doing essentially nothing while collecting a paycheck. No real skills, no actual accomplishments, just nepotism and a resume full of vague responsibilities she'd never actually fulfilled. Within a month, reality hit her hard. She applied to dozens of positions and got rejection after rejection. The few interviews she landed went nowhere because she couldn't answer basic questions about her supposed expertise. Finally, she took what she could get, an administrative assistant role at a mid-sized firm making $45,000 a year, less than half her previous salary. The math was simple and brutal. $45,000 annual salary meant roughly $3,000 a month after taxes. Rent alone was $3,000. She couldn't afford it anymore, not even close. The property management company called me when the first month's rent didn't arrive on time. "Your tenant hasn't paid," they informed me. "Should we send a late notice?" I felt a small flutter of something that might have been sympathy. She was still my sister, despite everything. Maybe I should tell her the truth, offer her a break, help her out during a difficult time. Family was supposed to mean something, right? Then I remembered her face at that dinner in the apartment. The condescension, the mockery. The way she'd looked at me like I was beneath her while standing in a space I owned, paid for with money I'd earned through actual work. The sympathy evaporated. "Give her an extension," I said. 2 weeks. See if she can sort it out." 2 weeks passed. No payment. The property manager called again, more insistent this time. "We need to start eviction proceedings or work out a payment plan. What do you want to do?" "Give her another month," I said. I wanted to see how far she'd let this go before asking for help. Before swallowing her pride and admitting she was in over her head. She lasted 5 months. 5 long months of non-payment, accumulating debt at $3,000 per month plus late fees that the property management company automatically added according to the lease terms. $15,240 total. During that entire time, she didn't call me once. Didn't reach out to her big sister for help or advice. Didn't admit to anyone in the family that she was struggling financially. Instead, she started selling things. I heard through my mother that my sister had suddenly become very interested in minimalism. "She's selling some of her designer bags," my mother said proudly. "Says she wants to simplify her lifestyle." I knew better. That wasn't maturity. That was desperation. I started paying attention to her social media. The cracks were there if you knew where to look. Posts about minimalism and capsule wardrobes. Photos of home-cooked meals instead of restaurants. She'd canceled her gym membership. The social media posts about the apartment continued. But she was recycling old photos, maintaining the illusion while quietly dismantling her life. Through Carolina, I heard she'd been pawning jewelry and selling designer bags at consignment shops for 30 cents on the dollar. She'd downgraded her car and parked it blocks away so no one would see. She was drowning, and she was too proud to admit it to anyone. Part of me felt bad for her. This was my sister. We'd grown up together, but mostly I just felt satisfied. She'd spent years making me feel small, and now she was learning what it actually felt like to struggle. This was karma, finally catching up with her. Then I got the text message. After 5 months of silence, after 5 months of pretending I didn't exist except as an object of pity at family dinners, she reached out. "Hey, Chloe," the message said, and I could hear her voice in my head as I read it. That fake casual, fake friendly tone she used when she wanted something, but didn't want to admit she wanted something. I know we haven't been as close as we should be lately. I've been thinking about that a lot, actually. Want to grab lunch sometime soon? Just the two of us. I'd really love to catch up properly. Do some sister bonding. It's been too long since we've really talked. I read that message 3 times looking for any hint of genuine emotion, but I knew what this was. Manipulation. The same tone she'd used when she wanted me to cover for her in high school. She wanted to use me without admitting she needed help. I didn't respond. Deleted the message and went about my day like it never happened. If she wanted to have an honest conversation about our relationship, about the favoritism and the cruelty and the years of making me feel worthless, then maybe I would have considered it. But this fake friendly lunch invitation that was obviously a prelude to asking for money? No, absolutely not. She tried again 2 weeks later. Another text. This one slightly more desperate, though still trying to maintain that casual tone. "Hey, did you get my last message? I know you're busy with work and everything, but I'd really love to see you. How about coffee this weekend? My treat." I deleted that one too without responding. The irony of her offering to treat me to coffee when she couldn't even pay her rent wasn't lost on me. Then she called. I was at my desk working when my phone rang, her name flashing on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. I wanted to hear how she'd play this. "Chloe. Oh my God, I'm so glad you picked up." Her voice was bright, almost frantic. "I've been trying to reach you for weeks." "I know," I said flatly. "I've been busy." "Right, of course. You're always so dedicated to your work. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, about family, about us, about how we've grown apart. And I miss you, Chloe. I miss my sister." The word sister came out with this little crack in her voice, like she was fighting back tears. It would have been convincing if I didn't know her so well. "What do you want?" I asked. A pause. Then that laugh, the nervous one she used when caught off guard. "Why do I have to want something? Can't I just want to reconnect with my sister? You've never just wanted to reconnect before." "Chloe, that's not fair. I know we haven't always been close, and maybe that's partly my fault, but I'm trying here. I'm really trying to be better, to be a better sister, a better person." Another pause, longer this time. I could hear her breathing, could practically feel her recalibrating her approach. "Look, I'll be honest. Things have been hard lately. Work's been stressful, money's been tight. I just thought maybe we could help each other out. Be there for each other, like sisters should be." There it was, the ask, dressed up in platitudes about family bonds. Help each other out how, exactly? I don't know, just support. Emotional support. And maybe if you had any advice about budgeting or finding deals or anything like that. You've always been so good with money. I wanted to laugh. She wanted budgeting advice. From me, while living in my apartment and owing me $15,000. "I don't have advice for you," I said. "Oh, well, maybe we could still do lunch? Just to talk? I could really use someone to talk to right now." "I'm not interested," I said. And then I hung up. She didn't call back. Another month passed. 5 months of non-payment now. $15,000 in debt. The property management company was insistent. "We really need to move forward with eviction proceedings. This is significant financial loss, and we have other potential tenants interested." I told them to prepare all the documentation, lease agreement, payment history, formal notice of eviction. I wanted everything legally airtight, and I wanted it ready for a specific occasion. The annual family holiday dinner was coming up. The one event where everyone attended, extended family included, all gathering at my parents' house for an elaborate meal and forced cheerfulness. My sister would be there. My parents would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole audience. A week before the dinner, Carolina asked to meet me for coffee. My cousin had always been different from the rest of the family. She worked as a social worker, dealt with real problems every day, and had this way of cutting through bullshit that I appreciated. We met at a cafe halfway between our apartments. She got straight to the point. "I know what you're planning to do," she said, stirring her coffee without looking at me. I kept my face neutral. "What am I planning to do?" "Come on, Chloe. Your sister's been secretly selling everything she owns. She lost her job months ago. She's drowning. And you own the apartment she's living in." "I'm not stupid. How did you know about the apartment?" "Property records are public. I looked it up after she mentioned the building name. The LLC traces back to you if you know where to look." I took a sip of my coffee, buying time. And I think you're going to drop this bomb at the family dinner next week. Maximum humiliation, maximum impact." She wasn't wrong. I met her eyes. "She had it coming," I said. Carolina leaned back, studying me. "Did she?" "Yes, absolutely. What they all did to you for years was fucked up. I saw it. I called it out when I could, but nobody listened to me either. But Chloe, you need to think about whether this is actually going to make you feel better or just make you feel more alone." "I'm already alone," I said. "I've been alone my whole life while surrounded by family who treated me like I was disposable." "I know, but there's a difference between setting boundaries and going for the throat. You can walk away quietly and build your life, or you can burn it all down on your way out. Both are valid. I just want to make sure you know which one you're choosing." "She's lived in my apartment for 18 months, I said, voice hard. "For 18 months, she's mocked me and looked down on me while I was literally funding her lifestyle. While I was paying her bills without her knowing it. She deserves to know exactly who's been keeping a roof over her head." "Okay," Carolina said simply. "Then do it. I just wanted to make sure you thought it through, that you're ready for what comes after. Which is, they'll make you the villain. Your parents will paint you as cruel and vindictive. Your sister will play the victim. Everyone will forget the decades of mistreatment and only remember the moment you exposed her. Are you ready for that?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Then I nodded. "Yes, because I'll know the truth. And that's enough." Carolina smiled, just a little. "Good. Then I'll be there to watch. Someone should witness this who actually understands why you're doing it." We finished our coffee talking about other things. Her work, my career, normal cousin stuff. But I felt lighter after that conversation. Someone saw me. Someone understood. Even if it was just one person, that was more than I'd had before. Perfect. I arrived at dinner with a leather portfolio tucked under my arm. Nobody paid attention to it. They were too focused on the meal, on catching up, on maintaining the facade of family harmony. My sister was there, looking thinner and more stressed than I'd ever seen her, but she put on her usual performance. Laughing too loud at jokes, dominating conversations, steering every topic back to herself. She'd been quiet during dinner, which was unusual for her. I noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way she pushed food around her plate instead of eating. She was drowning in stress and debt and probably hadn't slept properly in weeks. But after dinner, something shifted. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the audience of relatives watching. Maybe it was just her default setting to attack me whenever she felt insecure. Whatever the reason, she found her voice again. She stood up during dessert and raised her glass like she was making a toast. "I just want to say how grateful I am for everything I have," she announced, smiling around the table. "My amazing apartment in that beautiful building. My career, my life. It's important to appreciate your blessings, you know?" Then she turned to me directly, and I saw the malice in her eyes. "Speaking of which, Chloe, what have you been up to lately? Still in that same little rental? I keep meaning to ask, what exactly do you have to show for all those years of work? I mean, I have my place in that gorgeous building downtown. What do you have?" The table went quiet. A few people shifted uncomfortably. My mother shot my sister a warning look that she ignored completely. My sister was smiling, waiting for me to shrink down, to make excuses, to feel small like she'd made me feel my entire life. I looked at my mother for just a second. She looked tired, older. Part of me, some small part that remembered being a little girl who just wanted her mother's approval, considered letting it go, just walking away, being the bigger person, forgiving decades of favoritism and cruelty because that's what family supposedly does. Then my sister laughed. This sharp, cruel little laugh that said she thought she'd won, that she'd successfully humiliated me in front of everyone, that she was still superior despite everything. That laugh killed any hesitation I had left. I opened my portfolio calmly and pulled out the documents I'd prepared. The room stayed quiet as I laid them out on the table in front of my sister. Property deed first. showing my name as the legal owner of the apartment building. Then the lease agreement with her signature prominently displayed at the bottom. Then the payment history showing 18 months of tenancy and 6 months of non-payment. "You want to know what I have?" I said quietly. "I have the apartment you've been living in for the past year and a half. I own it. You've been paying me $3,000 a month to live in my property. Well, you were paying me. You stopped 6 months ago." My sister's face went from confident to confused to horrified in about 3 seconds. "That's not," she started, but I kept going. "The property management company contacted me when you missed your first payment. I gave you extra time. Thought maybe you were going through a rough patch. Then a month became 2. 2 became 3. Now you owe me over $15,000 in back rent, and you've been living in my apartment rent-free for half a year while posting pictures on social media pretending everything's perfect." I pulled out my phone and turned the volume up, then called the property management company on speaker. The manager answered professionally. "Ms. Chloe, how can I help you?" "I need you to proceed with the eviction paperwork we discussed," I said clearly, making sure everyone at the table could hear. "The tenant at Unit 412 has violated the lease terms with 6 months of non-payment. I'd like the formal eviction notice delivered tomorrow." "Absolutely," the manager confirmed. "We'll have the notice filed first thing in the morning. Standard process. Formal notice, court hearing in about 2 weeks, then the judgment. She'll have roughly 30 days total before the sheriff enforces the eviction." "Thank you," I said, and ended the call. The silence at the table was complete. My sister's mouth was opening and closing, but no sound was coming out. Other relatives were staring at the documents, at her, at me, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, broke the silence first. Her voice came out strangled, confused. "Wait, you own her apartment? How long have you known she was living there?" "Since before she signed the lease," I said calmly. "I arranged it." The implications of that settled over the table like a fog. My sister had been set up. I deliberately let her rent my property without telling her. For a year and a half, I'd collected her rent money while watching her mock me for not having property. My Uncle Tom, who'd always been loud about family loyalty, cleared his throat. "Now, Chloe, I understand you're upset, but this seems a bit calculated. Don't you think you're taking this too far?" I turned to him. "Uncle Tom, when was the last time you asked me how I was doing? When was the last time anyone at this table showed interest in my life, unless it was to compare me unfavorably to my sister?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. Couldn't answer. My father found his voice first, though his face had gone pale. "Chloe, surely we can work something out. She's your sister. This is family business. We can arrange a payment plan or—" "No," I interrupted, looking directly at him. "You don't get to play the family card now. Not after a lifetime of treating me like I didn't matter. Not after you gave her everything and gave me nothing. Not after you let her mock me at every opportunity while you smiled and called it teasing. She wanted to know what I have. This is what I have. Property, investments, success I built myself. And I'm done pretending that decades of your favoritism didn't happen." My mother tried next, her voice shaking. "Chloe, please. Sisters shouldn't treat each other this way. You need to forgive and move forward. Be the bigger person here." I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. Be the bigger person? I've been the bigger person my entire life. I was the bigger person when you bought her a car and told me to keep taking the bus. I was the bigger person when you paid for her private university and told me scholarships existed for a reason. I was the bigger person when she got a management position handed to her while I was offered a job answering phones for poverty wages. I was the bigger person every single time she mocked my life choices while living off your money. I'm done being the bigger person. My sister finally found her voice, and it came out as a desperate plea. "Chloe, I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry for everything. Please don't do this. I don't have anywhere to go. I can't afford." She stopped, realizing she was admitting defeat in front of everyone. "You can't afford the apartment you were bragging about 2 minutes ago?" I finished for her. "I know. I've known for 6 months. You lost your job. You're making $45,000 a year now doing administrative work. You can barely afford groceries, which is why you've been selling your designer bags at pawn shops. I know everything." One of my cousins, Carolina, who'd always been kind to me even when others weren't, let out a low whistle. "Damn," she muttered. And if the situation weren't so tense, I might have appreciated the validation. I gathered my documents and put them back in the portfolio. Then I stood up and addressed the table one final time. "This is the last family dinner I'll be attending. I'm done with all of this. The favoritism, the mockery, the expectation that I should just accept being treated like I matter less. I'm done. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't show up at my house. We're not family anymore. You made that choice a long time ago. I'm just finally accepting it. I walked out. Nobody followed me. Nobody called out. I got in my car and drove home to my actual house, the one I'd bought with money I'd earned. And I didn't look back. The eviction was processed legally and efficiently. The formal notice was delivered. 2 weeks later, the court hearing happened. My sister didn't even show up to contest it. The judgment was swift. Another 2 weeks after that, with the sheriff's enforcement notice in hand, my sister finally moved out. I heard through Carolina, who texted me despite my instructions not to contact me, that my sister had moved into a shared room situation in a bad part of town. She'd found a job that paid minimum wage and was working 40 hours a week just to afford rent on a single room with a bathroom shared between 4 people. My parents tried to help her, but their own financial situation was precarious after the business struggles. They couldn't afford to support her the way they had before. The money well had run dry. I listed the apartment again 2 weeks later. A young professional couple signed a lease within 3 days, paying 6 months up front because they were relocating for work and wanted security. They were respectful, responsible tenants who treated my property well and paid on time every single month. I blocked my parents' numbers, blocked my sister, blocked most of the extended family except Carolina, who I told explicitly that I didn't want updates about any of them. I'm not interested in reconciliation, I told her during one of her attempted bridge-building calls. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. There's a difference. Sometimes I'd see old photos pop up in my cloud storage memories. Pictures from childhood where we looked happy together. For a moment, usually late at night, I'd wonder if I'd made the right choice. Then I'd remember sitting at that table while my sister mocked me in my own apartment. Decades of being second place. My mother's voice. I know. She'd always known. I'd close the photos and move on. A few months after the eviction, my mother tried reaching out through Carolina one final time. She wanted Carolina to tell me that my sister was really struggling, that my parents were worried, that maybe I could find it in my heart to help family in need. Carolina delivered the message reluctantly, then added her own opinion. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. What they did to you your whole life wasn't okay. You don't owe them anything. I appreciated her saying it, but I didn't need the validation anymore. I'd already made peace with my decision. I'm not helping, I told Carolina, and I'm not changing my mind. They made their choices. I'm making mine. 2 weeks later, Carolina called again. Her voice sounded different this time. Steadier. More resolved. Chloe, I need to tell you something. I'm done too. What do you mean? I mean, I'm cutting them off. My parents. Your parents. All of them. I've been the family mediator for 10 years. The one trying to keep everyone together. The one making excuses. The one pretending everything's fine when it's not. And I'm tired. What happened? My mother called me yesterday. Wanted me to convince you to help your sister. Said you were being cruel and vindictive. That family is supposed to forgive. That you were destroying the family. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. And I told her no. I told her that if she wanted to talk to you, she could call you herself. That I wasn't going to be the go-between anymore. That what they did to you was wrong, and everyone knew it was wrong and nobody had the courage to say it. What did she say? She hung up on me. Then my dad called an hour later and said I was disappointing them. That I was choosing you over family. I said you are family. And he said, you know what I mean? Carolina's voice cracked slightly. So yeah, I'm done. I spent 10 years trying to fix something that was never mine to fix. Trying to keep peace in a family that didn't want peace, they wanted compliance. You showed me it's possible to walk away. That you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Carolina, no, let me finish. Thank you. Thank you for showing me that boundaries matter more than biology. That you can love people and still refuse to let them hurt you. I needed to see someone do it first. You gave me permission. I felt something loosen in my chest. Something I hadn't realized was still tight. You're not alone in this, she said softly. I know you're okay being alone. You've proven that. But just so you know, you're not. I'm here, not as a bridge to them, just as someone who sees you, really sees you. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you know. We talked for another hour after that. About everything and nothing. About her job. About a guy she was dating. About the new coffee shop near her apartment. Normal things. Family things. But the family we'd chosen to be to each other. Not the family we'd been assigned. That conversation became a pattern. Carolina and I talked every few weeks. Met for dinner once a month. She was the only one from that whole toxic ecosystem who made it through to my new life. Not because of blood, because she chose me. And I chose her back. That was the last conversation about my family I had with anyone who knew them, except Carolina. And with her, we didn't talk about them. We talked about us. I moved forward, built my career higher, made more investments, bought a second rental property, made friends who chose me because they valued me. Sometimes people ask if I have siblings. I tell them no. It's simpler than explaining that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from people who will never see your worth. I don't regret what I did. Not the revenge, not the eviction, not the permanent separation. My sister taught me that success isn't about what you're given. It's about what you build. And I built a life that's entirely mine, on my own terms, with no apologies. That's the only victory that ever mattered.